Thank you. Morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to come and find out a bit more about Freshgate and what we're doing with personalisation in the e-gaming space. So I'm probably going to spend 5 minutes just walking you through, I feel, the problem that the big untapped opportunity which we feel gambling operators aren't taking advantage of in the advertising space. And then I'll talk you through some of the experiences we've had working with some of our partners probably over the last year. So to give you a bit of background, I'm managing director of a company called Freshgate Gaming. We're a display marketing technology that operate almost entirely, actually, in the sports betting space. We've got plans to move into casino and bingo, but at the moment we feel sports betting being the primary sort of acquisition tool for operators, it's a great space where we can add a lot of value. So we're actually been running for 2 years. We are 18 people currently, and in terms of our journey, probably in the first year we spent a lot of time developing technology. In the last 6 months, or probably in the last 9 months, we've started to work with a handful of partners, both on the operator side and the publisher side. So we operate almost probably 70% of our business is in the UK at the moment, but we also operate in Germany, and we also do quite a lot in Spain. So we set up the business 2 years ago, and the aim of the business really was around the basis of if you can create smarter connectivity between content, operators and consumers, you have the opportunity to create a significant problem. Or not a significant problem, but solve a significant problem. If we look at display technologies for gambling operators, it's inherently a very expensive and pretty ineffective method of acquiring users. And from what we'd seen, there seemed to be some really big problems and expensive ones that you could solve by essentially making marketing spend a lot more effective. Now, if we look at actually what the problem is, and actually we've got a whole conference here today based around what this problem could be and how we can solve it. So a sports betting company's customers will spend most of their time online consuming third-party content. They may go back to the operator site, at certain times during the day, but often, certainly I do, and I'm sure a lot of you do, they'll spend their time on third-party sites. Customers love sports content, but actually they don't like to pay for it. So we've obviously got a lot of publishers here today who will argue that they have significant audiences that can convert really well. But actually operators would argue that actually the sum of money they have to pay to get in front of that audience doesn't equate to ROI in terms of conversion. Certainly over the last 3 years, this problem's actually got significantly greater with more platforms coming out. So mobile, desktop, tablets, watches, TVs, more platforms, more problems for operators. And the problem for operators is it's just a really expensive task to create content that gets people converting. So that could be in terms of creating offers, but actually at a very tangible level, it's creating, I suppose, banners and content which publishers can put on their site and mix around with their content. So what we find is operators, actually aren't being lazy. It's actually very difficult. They have to create in different languages for different kinds of users. They have to create content that actually only may last for a day. So there's this big expensive overhead of having to supply affiliates and media partners with the things that actually can get the ROI from their investment. Now, in terms of media partners, they've also got a big burden. If they want to do something smarter than, a generic banner, there's a big sort of technical overhead for them. So what they might need to do, for example, is tag their site with actually, sports betting operator, this page is about Liverpool. Or they may actually, if you look at something like the Racing Post, for example, they've done a very deep integration with a select number of operators, but actually the cost of that is quite significant. So if we go to the Racing Post, we'll see they've got 4 operators where you can actually bet through the bet slip. To do an integration for each operator, you were probably looking at 4 to 6 months in terms of technical work in a team of 6. So to get to that level of essentially providing utility and the ability to create ROI out of their content, they've probably spent 6 figures to make that work. Now, Now, also, affiliates also have this other problem. I think sports betting is probably one of the few industries in the affiliate space where you only actually get paid for converting a new customer. And I realise that sports betting is slightly different because it's a margin business. So, often sports betting operators don't have full control over the result of a match. But in every other industry in the affiliate space, if I essentially convert someone to buy a set of Adidas tracksuit bottoms, even though they're an existing Adidas customer, myself as an affiliate, I'll get paid for that. Now, there's a few reasons why that doesn't happen in the sports betting space, as I say, but equally, gambling's one of those nice industries. It's not as if, I go and buy something and, I get a set of tracksuit bottoms that have to come through the post. Gambling's actually an intangible transaction. It can happen there and then. There's no delivery or anything like that comes at the end of it. So the main problem why there's this kind of disconnect between affiliates and sports betting operators is actually content, but also technology. So hopefully this summarizes it quite nicely, everyone. But we actually felt that, with some of the technologies that are, certainly out now, and actually we feel we'll be seeing a lot more in the affiliate space, there's a massive opportunity to solve what is actually a very cash-generative kind of relationship between gambling companies, media companies, and their affiliates. So we're well on that journey. I'd say we've probably got a bit of a way to go, but I just thought I'd sort of tell you a bit more about what we've been doing and actually our experiences of adding some value and using some of these new technologies a bit more effectively for the benefit of both affiliates and gambling companies. So at its simplest, what we do is actually use data a lot more effectively to solve some of these problems that I've shown you on the previous slide. So we have a system which is able to understand web content. So what our system does is a user lands on the Daily Telegraph or Marker or Bild in Germany, and a computer, or essentially our computer or machine, will read that content and work out what it's about. So a user could be reading about, Rafa Benitez becoming Real Madrid manager, for example. But what we'll then also do is the user lands on the page, we'll also understand who the user is. So we'll say, actually, this guy who's landed on this page on Bild, for example, who is he? Where does he live? Does he have a relationship with the gambling company? Is he an existing customer who's a high roller, for example? Is he an existing customer who doesn't have money in his wallet? Or is he a new customer that we've just never seen before, and we can't actually make much sense of him, but we actually know what he reads about most often because we've seen him on Bild before. So off the back of that, we can then start creating experiences and ads for that user, which are most likely to bring about essentially the most valuable interaction, whether that be making it easier or giving the user more reasons, to register and place a bet, or even actually saying, do you know what? Then let's call the user Andrew, for example. Andrew, we haven't seen you for 2 weeks. We know you, read about or bet most on Bayern Munich content. Sebastian Schweinsteiger's 7-1 to score tonight, and actually let's put out an offer which actually will get him to redeposit money. So this all happens in kind of pseudo real time. So as the user lands on the page, we're doing all of these calculations kind of on the fly, at which point we create an ad for that customer, which essentially brings about what we want to happen, I suppose. So here's an example. So we've actually been working with Sky Sports and Sky Bet for just under a year. And we've obviously done a lot of technology development, also done a lot of learning off them. But I think this is a really good graphic just to show you exactly what we do. So it's this concept of reading the content. What's it about? We've got probably over 85 different templates, which we populate with live bet data, covering football, horse racing, tennis, golf, whatever it may be. And then we'll create an ad for that user. Now, the nice things about these ads are, and something we've seen working with an international partner recently, is they create them. Not only do they create themselves in terms of content, they also are responsive. So they also understand what platform they're on. So the ad gets rendered on the page. It goes, actually, what slot do I have to be served in? What device am I on? Am I on what platform am I on? Am I within an app? Am I within a mobile device? Am I on a desktop device? So all of that kind of overhead and that kind of probably what you still see now in terms of static content, just users getting hit with offers, have a free bet. All of that overhead is taken away from the operator, but also the publisher. So really the media company and the operator can sit back and we can hopefully say that computers are making really smart decisions for us based on historical data. So there's a huge overhead which we feel is obviously removed. So just to summarize, or hopefully just to, because I realize there's quite a lot going on here, we're doing a lot of things in a very smart and very efficient way, which hopefully solves a lot of problems. So in terms of who we work with, or some of the things we've done and some of the platforms we work on, I've mentioned Sky Sports and Sky Bet. We also work with bwin in Spain and Germany. We also work with Marca, a big Spanish newspaper in Spain. And we also work with the Perform Group. But you can see here, we work with bwin on the mobile side, on the desktop side. We also don't need to live within ad slots. So we can also live within content. We can create these quite, dynamic landing pages. So a user might, for example, predict 3-0. As a new customer, they're reading about Barcelona, and a landing page is created on that page based on what they interacted with. So not only the ads dynamically generated, but as I said, the landing pages are dynamically generated. So this is often a big problem for operators, creating really smart, efficient user journeys. And this is a user journey for a new customer. They're reading about Juventus, for example. They've really soft format just to get them, clicking, I suppose. But the nice thing about these formats, or guess the score formats, is you can create these really big outcomes. So 2-1 to a team or 3-1 to a team, £20 wins £400. It creates that kind of, well, this could actually happen. But actually what I'm trying to show you here, and one of the challenges is working with mobile devices, is creating these landing pages which actually don't take you away from the publishers. So this actual landing page actually pops up over the publisher's content, which they can then close again. Equally, if you're an existing customer, you can also place a bet over the publisher's page without having to leave the publishers. So, publishers obviously don't like people leaving their sites, you often find. So we've worked quite hard at making the betting experience actually occur as much as we possibly can on the publisher side, which some operators like, but actually, because we're working with the publishers, it seems to be what we need to do. But in terms of context as well, we're not only contextual to the user and the content, we're also contextual to the event data. So let me just give you an example here. You can see that, pre-match format, we actually keep an eye out for price movements in the betting company's betting feed. We also understand kickoff time. So, we've put a little countdown there, which is a bit like bingo, actually. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why bingo is so effective, because there's always a game going on. So, every 2 minutes, there's a game going on shortly. So we find countdowns work really effectively for creating urgency and supporting matches in play. Now, for acquisition, in play actually isn't, a big channel. We find, certainly for existing customers, which I'll talk you through shortly, in play's, actually a very good way of getting people transacting, but it's just part of the experience, I suppose. So I was talking about how we, you've seen some of the ways we sort of work with new customers, but we feel this is a big part of our value chain. So because we're working with the operator's CRM data, we can start making sense of users, who they are, when they hit third-party web pages. So, existing customers, if you can understand what they read about and where they go, you can start creating experiences for them. So here's an example of what we do with an existing customer, for example. They're reading about a Wigan versus QPR game. Instead of showing an ad for a new customer, here's a £50 free bet, why not create a slightly different experience? Why not allow them with one click, essentially just to click through to the operator's bet page or that event page, where they can actually place that bet and then go back to the publisher's page. So, currently we serve around 80,000 ads a second, and all of our ads are created on the fly. So you can imagine if you're creating these ads really quickly at quite a big scale, you're really creating all of these, a lot of very efficient and very transactional kind of interactions with customers. Here's an app or a piece of technology that we're actually quite proud of. So I talked about how different platforms are a major problem for gambling companies, and actually why, currently a lot of their advertising, both with media companies and affiliates, is probably what we would deem to be quite static. But the problem with apps is you're unable generally to see what content's in the app. It's not as though the content's on a URL like it's on the web. You need to be able to have a piece of technology which can render content from within an app, classify it, understand it, compare it with CRM data, but then also serve back an ad in literally milliseconds. So we've launched our native or our app technology with the Perform Group, the Go Live Scores, and it's a really easy piece of technology for affiliates to embed into their apps. So they can go, they can go to the operator's affiliate platform, for example, take the SDK, embed it into their app, and then essentially they've got a white label betting experience. So normally, I suppose previously, the affiliate, would have to be very technology minded, but would actually also have to do all of the development to make that happen. Again, we're doing exactly the same thing as I spoke about on the web. A user will click, and I think that says Liverpool there. They'll be then, taken through a user journey. Are you a new customer or are you an existing customer? And actually what we're trying to do is create a nice user journey for them. So should they go to the registration page if they're a new customer? Yes, but if they're an existing customer, deep link their bet placement or their, the sort of the odds that they've chosen into the bet slip and allow them to go back into the content. Once they've logged into their, Bet365 account or whoever it may be, we then remember that. So they're never shown this user journey again. Essentially, every selection is taken directly into the Bet365 bet slip. Essentially, it's a white label betting app. So it's quite a powerful piece of technology for app manufacturers or, people who own apps. So I've talked mostly about actually how, we cover football. We also cover other sports. So horse racing actually does very well for us. We find that people watch horses to bet. They watch football because they like football, and betting's a byproduct. So we also cover horse racing, golf, tennis, and we'll soon do basketball. So in terms of actually what this does, I've probably spent 15 minutes there talking about what we do and some of the background behind the technology. I'd say we're still, reasonably early as a technology company. We're still, one of the big challenges now is, do people value what we do? Do our customers buy into what we do? Yes. Does the data look good? Is it significantly better than, static advertising? Does it solve these problems that I talked about on slide 3? Tick. Yes, it does. Great. So now we need to make it very deployable for very big companies. If we can have a major impact on what is invariably their biggest expenditure, marketing, getting new customers, then we need to make it deployable for them. But with one of our customers, or certainly two of our customers, where we're actually quite mature and in terms of integrating with their platform and their CRM data, we've seen significant increases not only in new customer acquisition, but actually existing customer stakes placed from within ads, which actually we feel is entirely new for not the affiliate industry, but certainly for advertising from sports betting operators. We've also brought massive efficiency and hopefully what operators choose to buy in terms of media. We've uncovered some amazing kind of data on actually why people convert. If someone is within half a mile of a horse racing track, are they likely to buy or place or open a new account if we give them a sign-up offer relevant to where they are? But also what kind of content is driving customers? Probably doesn't come as much as a surprise that if there's a big game on tonight, say the Champions League final, it's probably going to be, the Champions League final with an offer that gets the user converting. But actually, there's kind of sub-trees of that in terms of actually what market is most effective for what kind of user and at what time. And actually, at what time during the day is that user most likely to convert? Because when you could pull together all of these data points, you're able to start essentially creating very complicated decisioning trees on essentially when and how to serve ads. And the problem with display, certainly over the last 10 years, is that you haven't had access to that data. And that's probably why Google pay-per-click has been, so heavily invested in by operators, because they expose the data to you. What has someone clicked on? What's the bid price? Where are they from? Then you can actually track it all the way through the funnel. And actually, that's what people want to see because they can invest more money in it. With display, certainly over the last year, and I suspect over the next 3 years, all of these data points that we need to make smarter decisions around what ads to show and when to invest will become, or will essentially will appear for us. So in terms of this year, what are we doing? Scaling out our technology more, which is like quite a big job, but we're taking on another 16 operators in the next, hopefully before the football season, operating in a number of different countries. We're also building out our data offering. So, I talked about how we, learn about pages and learn about, users. We also start building profiles of users that come across our technology, which publishers can use, which operators can use. So, you, as an operator, you may say, actually, there's a big Liverpool game going on this Saturday. We want to spend some money in media. And normally, you probably go to, one of the big media companies, or you may put an offer out via email to your affiliate partners. But actually, why don't we just buy ads for Liverpool fans? As an example, that slight change becoming more detailed in, what ads to buy and who you target. So you're moving away from buying impressions, and you're starting to move into a world where you're actually buying users. So in summary, display technologies, and I don't know who in this room works on the display side of sports betting, but there's a lot going on behind the scenes, which is going to have quite a drastic effect on how we spend money on media, how affiliates convert their users on publisher sites. It's good news for both affiliates and operators. The cost of building these quite complex integrations and these quite complex systems is going to reduce significantly. Operators will be able to spend media money a lot more effectively. And we feel, if we can create something that, increases conversion and makes ROI 25% more efficient, for example, for these massive operators that are in this room today, we're sitting on something that's quite interesting. So I'm around here for the rest of the day, or certainly I'll be here after this. So if anyone would like to find out more, feel free.
Does anybody have any questions for Andrew from the audience? Okay, I've got one. You spoke about operators. Where else is this technology being deployed now? Who else are you rolling this out for?
So in terms of channels, operators will be our primary customers. We feel working directly with the operators, they've got all of the CRM data, all of their customer data, which you can do all kinds of interesting things with. So invariably, our customer is working with the operator to better service their media channels and their affiliate channels. But also, we found ourselves working quite heavily with publishers. So, I probably showed you a few out there. Some of them obviously have direct relationships with the operators. There are others who, realize they get a lot of customers or a lot of users to their sites, but for whatever reason, there's been friction, or they can't get the ROI for the operator to make that advertising spend work most efficiently. So I suppose in order, we work with operators primarily, but we also work with publishers. So, we can bring our operators to the party, but also through affiliate channels. Affiliate channels make up significant, numbers in terms of acquisition for operators. So we can also work with affiliates.
You've obviously spoken about sports betting. Have you got any plans? Are you looking at other verticals as well?
Yeah, we do. So sports often, it's probably not where the highest value customer is, obviously, but it's often the acquisition tool for the operators. And it seems, it's probably the most mass market kind of vertical that they have in terms of, come on, bet on the football, bet on the horse racing. So we're layering this technology quite heavily in sports betting. We also see the opportunity, though, to use it in some of the other verticals. So obviously, cross-sell is quite a big thing for sports betting companies, and we can start using the data points to be able to understand that. So, this sports betting customer actually has been into the site every day for the last 2 weeks. He's a high roller, or he spends quite a lot of money. Actually, we need to try and get him into the casino because actually we can upsell him and make more money from him there. So cross-sell is a big thing. I think in terms of easily putting products out in what we do. We think there's quite a big opportunity to do something in poker potentially, primarily because game time's quite frequent. So there's a game going on in 2 hours. There's a game going on in 2.5 hours. So you can create that urgency.
And sort of turning to personalisation more generally, why do you think it's become so important of late in terms of marketing and advertising?
So I suppose personalisation. So personalisation is all built around using data and using quite disparate data sources really efficiently. I suppose if you look back over the last 5 to 10 years, the big data companies have been massive software companies like IBM, Oracle, because essentially they've had the computing power
to be able to build systems that can calculate all of these data points in kind of pseudo real time. But actually, technology, getting the ability to create this technology is getting a lot easier. So someone like us, we're a 15-man engineering team. We can now build technologies that can do all of these calculations very quickly. So what we're seeing at the moment is a lot of the operators are building personalisation services on their own sites because that's where the money is. That's where their users are. But actually, they have a real challenge sort of dealing with third parties because they need to make that personalisation deployable, and that's the really tricky bit. So, these publishers have all the users, but because all of the content means nothing to the publisher, it's very hard for them to do something with them without essentially doing something simple like retargeting.
Okay. I have one final question. I mean, in terms of retention, are you noticing when you go in to speak to operators, this is becoming more of a focus from them, switching their sort of away, not their attention away from acquisition, but also reallocating some of that budget towards keeping players?
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Do you find that a difficult argument though, with them at all, or is that becoming easier?
It is becoming easier. I mean, they all, every operator understands it. If we can keep that customer for longer and make money out of them. I think one of the challenges they actually have is that they can't actually track, some of their systems are quite disparate. So, they concentrate their attention on, app pushing, email messaging, texting. But actually, they find it quite hard to track the source that the user came in on. So I'd probably say 60% of the operators we work with are unable to track the source of an existing customer coming in and redepositing some money. What made them come back to their site or their app to do that? And actually, they have a problem quantifying it, which I think is the big gap at the moment. And I think, there'll probably be a few more talks today around disparate technology systems. But if they can get those, those metrics improved in terms of being able to measure it, they'll start putting more money into it.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Andrew from the audience? Okay. I'd like to thank Andrew for a really interesting presentation. Thank you very much. And we'll see you back here at 11:45.